In an era where everyone is scrambling to speak up, where thoughts, emotions, and plans are hastily shared, the one who knows how to remain silent gains the greatest advantage. Today's world glorifies transparency, urges self-disclosure, pushes you to voice everything, to connect, to be understood, to prove your existence. But ironically, the more you speak, the cheaper your words become. The more you expose, the easier you are to manipulate, predict, and ultimately lose yourself. There is an uncomfortable truth few dare to face. Timely silence holds more power than 1,000 justifications. In negotiations, the one who remains silent longer holds the power. In meetings, the person who speaks less but at the right moment is the one who gets heard. Meanwhile, those who rush to express opinions or reveal intentions too early often end up in a weaker position. Wisdom does not lie in saying everything you think. It lies in knowing how much to hold back and when to do so. Because this world is easily enchanted by what it sees but fears what it cannot fully grasp. Those who speak too much create an image that is easy to predict. Those who remain silent preserve part of their reality, forcing others to speculate, to tread cautiously, and it is precisely in the space of silence where real power resides. This is not passive silence, but strategic silence, a weapon forged to maintain control in situations where words could become your Achilles heel. When the world becomes too noisy, the one who knows how to remain silent at the right moment is the one who wins. From here, we will delve deeper into the art of silence, not only as a means to maintain the upper hand but also as a shield to protect yourself from the traps your own words might set. 1. The cost of excessive words, when silence becomes power. In the modern world, transparency is celebrated, constant communication is glorified, and emotional sharing is revered as a standard of decency and honesty. We live in a society where the more you talk, the more open you appear, and the easier it is to be labeled as sincere. But Machiavelli, the sharp-witted thinker of power, saw through that mask back in the 16th century. He understood, the more you speak, the more you lose your advantage, the more you remain silent, the more you retain freedom, power, and mystery. He once said, "The vulgar crowd is always taken in by appearances," meaning they are easily swayed by words and outward actions, while sharper minds know that silence conceals more, and that is what truly protects. Words, a double-edged sword. Every word you utter is another moment where you give power away. When you announce your plans, you bind yourself to that path. Change your mind, people will call you fickle, inconsistent, but if you stay silent, you can pivot at any moment without explanation, without apology. That's why Machiavelli said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." The fool exposes his thoughts from the beginning, while the wise man remains silent, listens, gathers information, and strikes only when the time is right. Look at any negotiation. The side that speaks first is at a disadvantage. The person who rushes to share opinions, disclose limits, or offer concessions first is the one easily led. Meanwhile, the silent one, listening and observing, holds the power. Silence, a fortress for the mind. The more you explain, the more you expose your mind. Others know what you think, how you reason, where your limits lie. They learn how to predict your next move, even manipulate you through the weaknesses you've revealed. Machiavelli once asserted, "To know a man's mind, observe the company he keeps." But in the context of communication, to know someone's strategy, watch how much they talk. The one who talks too much hasn't yet mastered their thoughts, easily falling into their own traps. The one who speaks little, who holds silence deliberately, controls the space of conversation, shaping the game. Silence, the cloak of power. Machiavelli knew that power doesn't just come from action, but from creating distance, and that distance comes from mystery. A leader who explains every decision, who justifies every action, sooner or later loses respect. In contrast, the one who leaves things unsaid, who creates space for others to interpret, holds the minds of the crowd. He wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, because fear arises from distance. From the unknown, love comes easily when people think they understand you. But if they understand everything, you become ordinary." A leader, a skilled negotiator, a shrewd power player, they all understand this. The age of excessive words. Today, people are encouraged to talk endlessly. Share your thoughts, express your feelings, voice your opinions. This creates the illusion of connection, but in truth, it's overexposure, giving away control of yourself to others. The more you talk, the easier you are to read, to counter, to twist. The colleague who speaks at every meeting, who interrupts every discussion, eventually no one listens anymore. The friend who posts every emotion on social media, from anger to joy, from dreams to disappointments, becomes predictable, dull. The leader who answers every question, explains every decision, sooner or later is seen as weak, vulnerable. Machiavelli would call this a strategic mistake. When you talk too much, you hand others the tools to hurt you. When you reveal your plans fully, you give control to your opponent. Silence, the art of holding position. The wise are not afraid of silence. They use it as a tool to observe, to retain power. Just as Machiavelli pointed out, it's not the strongest who wins, but the one who knows when to stay silent. In an age where everyone speaks, the one who knows how to remain silent is the loudest voice of all. 2. Three types of strategic silence: saying nothing yet making others think. Silence, in Machiavelli's philosophy, is not merely the absence of words. It is an art, a strategy, a tool of power used by the wise to control, lead, and influence. But not all silences are the same. There are 3 types of strategic silence, and each serves a different purpose in the game of power, communication, and influence. Type 1. Silence to gather information, listening as others expose themselves. Machiavelli once said, "The fool rushes to reveal his opinion, while the wise waits to learn." This is the essence of silence used to gather information. When you remain silent, you force others to fill the void, and as they speak, they not only reveal surface-level information but also expose intentions, weaknesses, and the way they think. They unwittingly lay out the map of their mind before you. In negotiation, this is a golden rule. Whoever speaks first loses. The one who discloses their position first loses the advantage. They reveal the extent of their desires, their willingness to compromise, or precisely what they need. Meanwhile, the one who remains silent gathers information, catches the rhythm of the opponent, and makes their move at the right time. It is the same in personal relationships. Those who speak too much often think they are in control of the conversation. But in reality, they expose their emotions, concerns, and even fears. The listener, by absorbing more, understands these deeper layers. They control the atmosphere without ever taking the stage. In practice, the most successful individuals in negotiation, leadership, and even the art of conversation are often those who speak the least but listen the most. They let others outline everything they need to know, and that is how they win. Type 2. Silence to establish power. Distance creates authority. Machiavelli understood that power largely comes from perception, not reality. People fear or respect you not only for what you do, but because they believe you could do something. And to maintain that perception, you need distance, you need mystery. He once wrote, "A prince must be both a lion and a fox. The lion is strong, but the fox is wise." Knowing when to stay silent. Silence, when used at the right moment, reinforces your image as someone who is in control, who exercises restraint, and thus creates a sense of authority. The leader who answers every question, who explains every decision, comes across like an employee seeking approval rather than someone at the top. Meanwhile, the one who speaks only when necessary, says little but says it right, who always holds something back, commands respect with every word. Their selectiveness in speech gives weight to their voice. They do not waste words. And because of that, whenever they speak, people listen. A classic example, in meetings, who speaks the most? Often, it is those at lower levels, trying to prove themselves. The person at the top listens, occasionally interjects, but each word shapes the entire conversation. This restraint solidifies their position, creating an image that cannot be underestimated. Type 3. Silence to maintain ambiguity. Freedom to act without being bound. One of Machiavelli's sharpest principles is, it is better to be feared than loved. But fear comes not only from strength but from unpredictability. When you do not commit, do not explain, do not provide clear answers, others are forced to speculate. They project onto you their expectations, fears, and hopes, all based not on truth, but on lack of information. This is silence used to maintain ambiguity. Politicians use ambiguity to keep all factions believing they could be allies. Negotiators withhold their positions to avoid being locked into a specific option. Leaders speak about vision but leave the methods open, maintaining flexibility for changing circumstances. In practice, if you commit too early, you limit yourself. When you speak too clearly, others define you, but when you leave space, you force them to fill in the gaps with assumptions, and in many cases, those assumptions benefit you more than the truth. 3. The psychological power of silence when others expose themselves. Silence is not just a communication strategy, it is a psychological tool. In Machiavelli's philosophy, timely silence not only withholds information for oneself but also compels others to reveal themselves. That very emptiness creates psychological effects that words can never achieve. Silence can make others feel uneasy, provoke self-doubt, or lead them to believe you know more than you actually do. It is all a game of the mind, and those who know how to wield silence are the ones who control the rules. First, the projection effect. Others paint the picture themselves. Machiavelli clearly understood an immutable law of human psychology. When faced with silence, the mind cannot tolerate the void, it will fill it with its own assumptions. This is called the projection effect. When you remain silent in a discussion, your counterpart starts to wonder, where are they thinking? Do they agree? Do they know something I don't? Silence creates a space that the other party feels compelled to fill with their own fears or hopes. This is especially effective in negotiations or confrontations. When you remain silent and do not respond immediately, the other side tends to spiral into negative assumptions. Did I say something wrong? Do they disagree? And that very uncertainty puts them at a disadvantage. In practice, seasoned interrogators do not need to ask too many questions. They remain silent long enough for the person being interrogated, unable to bear the tension, to reveal details they never intended to share. Silence makes others betray themselves. Second, silence builds position. Whoever controls silence controls the game. In any form of communication, there is an unspoken rule. The one who talks more is the one seeking approval. The one who talks less, who controls the silence, holds the upper hand. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved." But to be feared requires distance, requires control, and timely silence is the tool to maintain that distance. In a meeting, the person who talks too much eventually comes across as lacking control. Lacking poise, the person who speaks less, only when necessary, becomes the most respected. Silence adds weight to words. When you do not speak everywhere, every time, every word you utter carries significance. Others must listen because you do not offer your words lightly. Consider true leaders. The mediocre leader responds to every criticism, justifies every action. The true leader selects what deserves a response, remains silent when needed, and that restraint amplifies their authority. The one who controls silence is the one who does not chase the crowd's gaze, and thus, they become the person others must observe. Third, silence creates mystery. When not everything is seen, people magnify what's missing. Machiavelli once wrote, "People judge more by what they see than by what they touch." Many see, but few experience. This means that what is ambiguous, incomplete, or unpredictable often carries more weight than what is clear. The person who reveals every thought, every plan, every emotion, becomes predictable, easy to manipulate. The person who holds something back, who does not reveal everything, who keeps a part for themselves, creates an aura of mystery, and mystery is the weapon that commands respect. Think of the legendary figures in history. They never explained everything. They left gaps, unanswered questions, and that is what made their image larger than life. Napoleon never fully explained his decisions. Steve Jobs always kept part of Apple's strategy secret, creating anticipation and curiosity. Elon Musk often says less than what people expect, leaving space for the public to speculate. Mystery nurtures power. When people cannot see the whole picture, they imagine the rest to be greater than reality. 4. The dangerous temptation of transparency. In the modern world, transparency is exalted as a supreme moral standard. Society glorifies sharing, openness, and honesty as if the more one bears their soul, the more one is admired. People are encouraged to spill every thought in their mind, expose every plan, every fear, every past mistake, all under the guise of living authentically and good for the relationship. But Machiavelli, a man who deeply understood human nature and the game of power, saw the dark side of that very transparency. He did not oppose the truth, but he warned, "Too much truth does not bring freedom, it brings shackles." Why? Because when you are forced to be transparent, you are tying yourself down with your own words. You turn every promise, every plan, every emotion into chains that tighten around your ability to adapt and pivot. Anything revealed too soon, committed too early, becomes a barrier to your freedom of action in the future. Machiavelli once wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past, but the word broken is a necessity of the present." This seemingly ruthless statement actually reflects a vital truth. The world changes constantly, and clinging to fixed commitments is self-destruction. But today's society, with its worship of transparency, demands that you bind yourself to those commitments as proof of your integrity. In the workplace, this manifests as the constant need to update progress even when a task is still in its infancy. You are compelled to present ideas that have not yet matured, facing judgmental eyes when they are still rough drafts. In negotiations, you are pressured to lay all your cards on the table first, to reveal every limit, every need, every weakness, just to appear sincere. In personal relationships, you are expected to recount your past, bare your soul, confess half-formed thoughts, as if intimacy is about stripping your soul naked before another. Transparency, as it operates in the modern world, is not a weapon, it is a trap. When you reveal too much, you lose control over the narrative about yourself. Others use what you disclose to assess, dissect, judge, or worse, to manipulate your behavior toward their ends. You become predictable, easy to control, and easily replaced. Machiavelli understood that power does not lie in spilling your heart out. It lies in knowing what to withhold. It is not about being mute, but about the delicate selection of what to reveal in order to maintain the upper hand. Speak only what serves your objective, hide what would harm you. This is not deceit, it is wisdom in a world where every word can be used as evidence against you. Remember, the more predictable you are, the more controllable you become. The overly transparent person turns into an open book. Anyone can read it. Anyone can decipher it, and anything too easily grasped will eventually be disregarded. Meanwhile, the person who keeps a part of themselves in shadow, those untouched corners, will always evoke a sense of unpredictability, creating a blind spot that others must respect. Total transparency, as Machiavelli saw it, is strategic suicide. There is no need to deceive anyone, but keeping a part of your story back, ensuring no one has the full picture of you, is the wise way to operate. What society calls honest sharing is sometimes just an excuse for the weak to surrender control to others. And that is why Machiavelli never idolized transparency. He did not believe that laying everything bare is the way to maintain power. On the contrary, holding something back, a plan, a goal, a thought that need not be spoken yet, is how you keep others on edge. Always wondering, what is he thinking? Because when things remain unclear, you retain control over how others perceive you. A spoken word is lost, but selective silence is always a move, a card the opponent cannot predict when you will play, and that is where true power lies. 5. Practical application, the discipline of silence. Silence is not instinctive, it is a discipline, and like any discipline, it demands training, self-control, and patience. In the modern world, where everyone rushes to voice their thoughts, express their feelings, and assert their positions, silence becomes a counterintuitive reflex, and precisely because of that, it creates a strategic advantage. Machiavelli did not advocate for total silence. He taught us to speak at the right moment, in the right way, and most importantly, to only speak when words bring more benefit than silence. So how can this be applied in modern life? How can one cultivate the discipline of silence? Here are 3 practical steps. Step 1. Create an information advantage. Do not speak before you understand. In any conversation, negotiation, or even casual chat, the person who speaks first tends to reveal their weaknesses. Let others talk more. They will reveal their thoughts, positions, even their fears. And you only need to listen. Every time you are about to react or respond, ask yourself, do I know enough to answer yet? If not, stay silent. Let the other person expose more of themselves. A well-timed question, a focused gaze, or a slight nod can prompt the other to continue speaking, while you remain steadfast, not revealing too much. This is especially crucial in negotiations. The inexperienced often rush to share their desires, their positions, their limits. Meanwhile, those who master the discipline of silence maintain the upper hand by listening, analyzing, and only expressing themselves when they have enough information to shift the game. Step 2. Maintain deliberate ambiguity. Do not let anyone box you in. There are times when you don't need to clarify everything. When someone asks, "What are you planning to do next?" you don't have to give a clear answer. A smile, a vague reply like, "There are many possibilities," is enough. Keep them wondering. Ambiguity prevents others from predicting your next move. It keeps you flexible. You are not bound by any promises, declarations, or commitments. When you keep others in a state of waiting, you control their psychology. This is the art of keeping your options open. In work, when you are unsure about a project or an offer, don't rush to refuse or accept. Leave it open, observe, and make a decision when the circumstances are most favorable to you. Machiavelli called this the wisdom of the fox, knowing when to evade and when to attack. Step 3. Know when to speak. Only speak when words carry weight. Silence does not mean remaining mute forever. It means speaking less, but ensuring that each time you speak, your words carry power. A leader does not need to explain every little detail. They only need to speak decisive words, words that make people pay attention. Learn to remain silent in unnecessary arguments. When someone criticizes or provokes you, reacting immediately only makes you lose the upper hand. A confident silence, a direct gaze into the eyes of your opponent, can exert more pressure than any defense. When you choose to speak, ensure your words have weight, either because their content is sharp or because they are rare enough to draw attention. A sentence from someone who is usually silent creates twice the impact compared to someone who constantly babbles. Cultivating the discipline of silence is cultivating self-mastery. It is not easy. Our ego always wants to be heard, to be proven right, but the truly strong are those who let strategy lead the way, not emotions. Start with small conversations. Stay silent more. Listen more attentively. React less. Observe the effect. Others will reveal more. You will better control your emotions, and each word you speak will gradually become sharper. Machiavelli did not advocate passivity. He advocated wisdom, and the discipline of silence is one of the wisest tools. It helps you hold power without ostentation, to control without over-controlling. When you master it, you will win the game while others have yet to realize a game is even being played. When everyone is vying to speak up, it is silence that captures attention. In a society that encourages constant self-expression, disclosure, and emotional display, the one who holds back even a small space for themselves becomes the one in control. They do not need to expose everything to feel valuable. They do not need to convince anyone with words. Their restraint in speech becomes a declaration in itself. There is a fascinating paradox. The less you speak, the more others want to hear you, because silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is a space that others are compelled to fill with speculation, with expectations, with curiosity. While you maintain your position, those around you begin to construct an image of you, a figure stronger than anything you could ever describe yourself. And from that, real power is forged. Look around. Who speaks the most? Who constantly seeks validation, always needs to be understood? These are often the most vulnerable people. For every word spoken is a piece of the self exposed. Each time they explain, each time they overshare, they make themselves smaller in the eyes of others. Meanwhile, those who speak less, those who preserve a certain distance, these are the ones who are respected, who are approached with caution. Timely silence is not passive, it is a strategy employed by masters of power to steer situations, to claim victory without ever drawing a sword. And as you journey deeper into this art, you will come to see that sometimes silence itself is the loudest voice.